I'm not strong enough to do this alone, she whispered, until the giant mountain man knelt by her side. She said the words into the cold dawn, barely louder than the wind grazing the broken fence line. I'm not strong enough to do this alone. The prairie swallowed her voice, and for a long moment, she believed no one would answer. She stood barefoot in the thin dust outside her leaning cabin, thin-shouldered, shawl slipping, the ache of too many disappointments tightening her breath. Her field had failed again. Her only mule had wandered off in the night, and the letter tucked against her ribs, creased, worn, almost soft from being held too many times, told her she had 1 week to pay debt she didn't owe. She had no family, no voice loud enough for the town to hear, no strength left to pretend. That was when the earth gave a deep, deliberate thud, then another, the sound of someone built from stone and sorrow approaching. He appeared at the edge of the trees, broad as a ridge behind him, bearded, silent, a giant of man who rarely came this close to other people. Folks in town only whispered about him. The mountain man who lived higher than the goats, who spoke to no one, who carried quiet like a second skin. He stopped 10 steps from her, lowered to one knee like he was greeting something fragile, and lifted his gaze, steady, unreadable, patient. She startled, clutching her shawl. "Why are you here?" He didn't answer with words. Instead, he offered a slow nod toward the ruined fence, the empty field, the cabin shutters barely hanging by a nail. A simple acknowledgement of the truth she'd been trying to hide from herself. "You don't have to," she began. He shook his head gently, as if saying, "Let me carry the part that breaks you." For a moment she almost cried, but the tears stopped, settling somewhere strange and warm inside her chest. He worked without being asked, lifting broken beams, setting fence posts, gathering lost tools from the weeds. His hands moved like he had done the same work for someone else, long ago, and never fully recovered from the memory. She tried helping, but he stepped in front of her when her knees wobbled, not controlling, just guarding. By midday, he had repaired more than she had managed in months. She brought him a cup of water. He took it, drank once, then surprised her by speaking. "Trouble?" Just one word. "Gravel low. Careful." She nodded. "A man in town. He says I owe him money." "I don't, buddy. He likes when people can't answer him back." The mountain man's jaw shifted. A flicker, barely there, but enough to tell her he understood something about being silenced. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Tired of not being heard. Tired of being small." He looked at her then, really looked. Not at her worn clothes or her trembling hands. At her, and something in her steadied. Through the following days, he kept returning. At dawn, at dusk, repairing the roof, clearing the well, bringing her lost mule back like it weighed nothing. Staying long enough for her to breathe, without panic. He said little, but his silence wasn't cruel. It was safe, solid, anchoring. She found herself telling him things she had never spoken aloud. About the brother who ran off east, the mother buried on the hill, the fear she lived with each time she walked into town. When she spoke, he listened with the intensity of a man witnessing something holy. One evening, as the sun lowered in a slow gold ribbon across the field, she murmured, "I used to sing, before everything went wrong." He didn't ask her to. He just sat on the porch step, waiting. Her voice came out thin at first, then fuller, warmer, and when she stopped, embarrassed, he gave a small nod that felt like a standing ovation from a man who didn't know how to clap. Her chest felt light for the first time in years. But good things in the West rarely stayed quiet. On the 6th morning, a wagon cut across her road, belonging to the man who claimed she owed him. He stepped down with a grin wrong enough to rot the air around him. "You got 1 week," he reminded her, "or I take the land, and whatever else I find on it." She froze. She couldn't breathe. Her voice left her. Again, the mountain man wasn't there, and the world suddenly felt too heavy to lift. As the wagon rolled away, her knees buckled. She sank into the dust. the same words slipping from her again like a prayer she didn't want. I'm not strong enough to do this alone. And that was where the intensity peaked, her breath shaking. The camera of your viewer's imagination locked on the quiet collapse of a woman who had finally found hope, only to feel it tearing away again. He came back at dusk, saw her sitting on the porch steps, arms wrapped around herself like a shield. His expression tightened, not anger, not fury, just concern carved into the shape of a protector who had learned to move gently around wounded things. She told him everything, not with strength, not with pride, just with honesty. I can't pay him. I can't fight him. And if he takes this place, it's the last piece of my family I have left. He didn't interrupt, didn't stand, didn't storm off. He simply knelt, slow, deliberate, until his eyes were level with hers. Then he placed his hand over his chest, tapped once, and tapped the ground beside her. A silent vow. You are not alone. Not anymore. Her breath caught, and for the first time in years, she felt taller than the fear pressing on her. He walked with her into town the next morning, not as a bodyguard, not as a threat, but as a witness. She confronted the man again, not with shouting, but with steadiness she never thought she'd find. You know this debt isn't mine, she said. And you know why you chose me. Because you thought I had no one, but you were wrong. She didn't look back at the mountain man. She didn't need to. The man studied her, looked into her eyes, and for the first time realized he couldn't bend her anymore. He withdrew, not by force, by losing the power he used to enjoy. Walking home, she felt her lungs open like a new season. You didn't save me, she murmured. You helped me save myself. The mountain man didn't smile, but something gentler than a smile softened his eyes. At the cabin door, she reached out and took his rough, careful hand, and the final truth rose in her like sunrise. Maybe I wasn't strong enough alone, but I'm stronger now because you stayed. The wind settled. The prairie listened, and for the first time, she didn't whisper. She spoke loud enough for the world to hear.